The purpose of this lecture was knowledge is power. Knowing who the jinn are, knowing their characteristics, wallahi, the more you know, the less you fear. The jinn have no power over you, unless Allah has willed it. The jinn can only harm you in a manner that is physical, but it is beyond your physical understanding. The jinn are not super powerful. The jinn have limited strength, limited knowledge. The only thing that really messes up the equation, you can't see them. If you could see the jinn, you would fear them like you fear a predator. That's all. They have similar physical powers, not infinite physical powers. They're faster than you, a little bit stronger than you, but you have the advantage of the brains. And you have the most important advantage, and that is Islam. So, how do you protect yourself from the jinn? Firstly, following the commandments of Islam to the max. Following the sunan of the Prophet ﷺ. Many examples. Eating, you say Bismillah, jinn will not eat with you. Drinking, drink with your right hand. Making du'as to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, extra isti'adha. A'udhu billah. Especially a'udhu billah is the most powerful way to protect yourself against the jinn. When we read the Quran, فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. When we enter the bathroom, a'udhu Allahumma na'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith, male and female jinns. When we are angry, what did the Prophet say? Say a'udhu billah, because the jinn is making you angry. Right? When we have a bad dream, what did the Prophet say? Turn around and say a'udhu billah, ista'idh billah. Okay? So all of these are isti'adah, seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing to protect yourself against the jinn is extra dhikr. Lots of dhikr. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Bismillah. Our Prophet ﷺ said at night when every person goes to sleep, shaitan ties 3 knots on him. And shaitan says, may you have a long sleep and don't wake up for Fajr. Sleep until the sun comes up. Right? So, if the person, the Prophet said, wakes up and remembers Allah, dhakar Allah, 1 knot is broken. So as soon as you wake up, you're supposed to say Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. And that's the dua of waking up. What is the dua of waking up? Alhamdulillah alladhi. Not at'amana wa saqana. Okay, I thought you said at'amana wa saqana. No, not after, unless you have food right there and you... Okay, Alhamdulillah. So, the dua of waking up, you praise Allah, or you say Bismillah. So when you do dhikr Allah, what happens? One of the knots is broken up. Also in a beautiful hadith, listen to this, that a lady was on a camel, or on a horse, or was it a man? I forgot now, a sahabi, I forgot. I think it was a lady, but I'm not sure. And the horse or the camel, it reared upwards. And this lady or man, I forgot, said, Ta'isa shaitan. Basically, may shaitan be cursed. Why is he irritating my animal? So the Prophet ﷺ said, don't say Ta'isa shaitan. Don't say may this entity be cursed. Rather say Bismillah. Because when you say Ta'isa shaitan, you make shaitan feel very important. And he becomes bigger than a house. He swells up in pride that you blame me. Excuse me, sorry. And when you say Bismillah, you make him feel so insignificant, he becomes smaller than an ant. So, to say, oh, this shaitan did it, and this is especially Pakistani Indian people here, it's in our culture. Shaitan ne kiya ye, right? We need to calm down. Because when we ascribe things to shaitan, what happens? Shaitan feels proud. Yeah, that was me, good. Right? Now, by the way, this is in context here. I mean, obviously, if you do it, I shouldn't have said that because now I have to give all of these caveats and whatnot. You're not supposed to ascribe some type of power to shaitan over you or your animal or your house or something like that. But you may ascribe a past sin or a past issue. Oh, shaitan made me do that. That's something in the past. Nothing right now that you're giving him power. But you may excuse yourself, shaitan misguided me when I was younger. Alhamdulillah, Allah guided me. As long as that you get to stage number 2 and you try to excuse yourself, like the brothers of Yusuf said. Yusuf and his brothers, what did he say? That, that was shaitan, that wasn't you guys. Like he's trying to excuse his brothers, right? So in some contexts, then it's useful. But never in the present for right here and now. That shaitan, caused this. No, you say, like the hadith says, you say Bismillah, and shaitan will feel so insignificant, he will become smaller than an ant. So we had number 1, following the commandments. Number 2, isti'adah. Number 3, dhikr. Number 4, or you can say 3a, it depends, or 4, especially one dhikr when you leave the house. That is especially important. That our Prophet ﷺ said, if somebody says when he leaves the house, Bismillahi tawakkaltu ala Allah. You all know this? وَلَا حَوْلَ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. What's after this? اللهم أعوذ بك أن أضل أو ضل وزل أو زل وأظلم أو أظلم أو أجهل أو يجهل علي. This is a long dua. If you don't know it, then look it up in any book of dua. So the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says this dua when he leaves his house, one shaitan says to the other, how can you get at a man who has been guided and taken care of and protected? How can you get to this man? He's now basically been force shield around him. So especially this dhikr. Another thing that protects against shaitan is the adhan. The adhan. So we should give adhan in our houses as much as possible. We should love to hear the adhan, because shaitan is disrespectful to the adhan. Shaitan tries to be sacrilegious. When the adhan is heard, shaitan makes the most sacrilegious noise imaginable, and he's trying to make fun of the adhan. And this shows us the evil nature of shaitan, that he wants to drown the sound of the adhan out. So we love to give the adhan. And the final point that we'll mention is Quran, Quran, Quran. Nothing protects against the jinn like the Quran. Nothing protects against the jinn like the Quran. That we learn this straight from the mouth of Iblis himself. He told Abu Hurairah, recite Ayatul Kursi. And our Prophet would recite Falaq and Nas. And our Prophet said that shaitan can never enter a house where Surah Al-Baqarah is recited. Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, right? So all of this shows us that the Quran is of the most important ways to protect ourselves from the jinn. And therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, the jinn is not something to be feared any more than you fear a physical harm. The jinn is not anything that you should be scared of supernaturally. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that you are truly scared of. And the more scared you are of the jinn, the more power the jinn has over you. Listen to me carefully. The more terrified you are of the jinn, the more you are handing over your power to the jinn. And the more that you are brave against the jinn, automatically you will make the jinn weaker. Automatically. You simply tell the jinn, if la qaddar you are sure that there's an... And by the way, I have to point out here, subhanAllah, 99% of the time, if you hear some scraping noise or you see, or you hear some whatnot, it's your fridge that needs to be fixed or something, Like 99% of the time. It's the wind blowing or something. And I speak from experience. If somebody calls me up this and that, look, the jinn have something better to do than scratch their nails on your walls. Okay? They have something better to do than steal your pencil. And like, where did my pencil go? The jinn must have taken it. No. Maybe it's your kid. Maybe you yourself forgot it. I'm telling you, wallahi, the majority of time, it's your imagination. It's something you have not. But once in a very blue moon, and may Allah protect me and you, something genuinely happens that you can sense or you can feel. And yes, there is a feeling that there is an entity that is evil here. That's very rare. Very, very rare. And many people live their lives and it never happens. And may Allah make you and me amongst them. But sometimes you feel that. Or, la qaddar Allah, you actually, and it is true. I mean, there are people that you see an entity wanting to terrify you. This is very, very, very rare. And in my many years of doing this, I don't think anybody has come to me with the story of a wakeful entity coming. In sleep, yes, that's much more common. In sleep, the jinn will terrify you. But a wakeful entity, like somebody, when you are awake, and then some entity coming to terrify you, I have never met somebody like that. I have heard from others and research and whatnot. I have never met anybody that has told me that when I'm awake, this entity has come with goblin and this. That's horror movies. That's so rare. It does happen 1 in a billion, but it's very rare. What is more common? Dreams. What is more common? Irritation and other methods, waswas, whisperings and whatnot. This is more common. We'll talk about that, and then sihr, the issue of sihr, we'll talk about that in part 2. But in part 1, if you feel that there is some evil entity harming you and whatnot, what do? Bismillah, Ayatul Kursi, you control your fear, and you say, for example, Bismillah, you cannot harm me unless Allah has willed. I believe in Allah. I am Abdullah. So when the Prophet was performing exorcism, we'll talk about that in part 2, that he actually said, Bismillahi ana Abdullah, ukhruj aduwallah. Everything is linked to Allah. Bismillah, ana Abdullah. I am the slave of Allah. Get out of here, O enemy of Allah. So whatever you do, link it to Allah. Don't say yourself, or don't say the jinn. Yourself and the jinn, nothing. Link it to Allah. Allah will protect me against you. Right? Get out of here in the name of Allah. For example, this is what you would say if that were to ever happen. Otherwise, inshallah, I can assure you, this is so rare that the vast majority of people live their lives and they never see anything like this. And that is because the jinns have better things to do than come and scare you like a goblin. They have their lives. Believe it or not, they have to earn a sustenance as well. They have to feed their families. Think about it, right? They have better things to do than go turn your light switch on and off, in the middle of the night, Once in a while that might happen to somebody, but usually it's your kid coming in or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, alhamdulillah, learning the Quran and Sunnah will calm us down, will empower us, will make us less and less scared. And the perfection is not to be scared of these entities at all, because they cannot hear your thoughts, they cannot read your minds. They are physical creations of Allah that have certain different characteristics than you. That's all it is. They are physical creations. They are creations of Allah. They have certain things that you don't have. Because of this, they might have an advantage over you in some areas, but overall, you have the advantage over them in brains and in iman. And if you have these two combined, then inshaAllah ta'ala, that can never harm you. We have some time for Q&A, and inshaAllah we will have a part 2 sometime soon, Allah knows when. And that will be for adults only. And at night time in the camp we will light the fire, right? Astaghfirullah. But that will be no kids allowed to that one. Yes, Dr. Bashar, go ahead.
Just a couple of questions. One of them regarding the physicality of the jinn and how they're probably energy, Allahu Alam. And how would the Prophet ﷺ be able to tie somebody up and, to the pillar of the masjid, or Abu Hurairah wrestle with someone and catch him? They don't have they can turn themselves into energy and fly away. You can't really tie them up. The other thing is the encounter with the jinn. You said the casual and the rare encounter, but there's also the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sahih Muslim, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, "Ma minkum min ahadin illa wukila bihi qareenuhu min al-jinn." Every one of you has a qareen. What is the qareen issue, and how do you deal with that?
Okay, so the issue of the physicality of the jinn. As for Abu Hurairah wrestling with the jinn, so when the jinn takes the form of a human, it has to downgrade its powers. And it is physical at that point in time. And there are athar. There is an athar that I did not quote today, of a sahabi wrestling with a jinn and overpowering the jinn in a physical form, when the jinn was a human. And the Sahabi didn't know it was a jinn. Turns out it's a jinn. So he wrestles with him and then beats him in a physical form. When the jinn becomes a human, the limitations become human. And Allah knows best. Maybe they can't just instantaneously become a jinn again. Maybe it takes some effort. We don't know. So that is why Abu Hurairah could physically grapple with him. And if a jinn enters into a body, it's not easy for the jinn to leave that body. It's not that simple. And this is the issue of possession, which that's going to be the rated R stuff in the next lecture, right? Not for now. That if the jinn enters the body, it's not easy. It's actually very difficult to get the jinn out. So I'm talking about E equals MC squared. It's pretty clear it's not that easy. And the Ifrit was talking about the maximum. That's the first thing. The second thing about how the Prophet was doing it, that's Alim al-Ghayb. That's Ilm al-Ghayb. How could the Prophet tie up a jinn? Obviously not with something physical. He was thinking about another method of maybe through the angels. We don't know, and going to be beyond our scope. The other question you asked was the Qareen. So when I talked about the interaction, I meant with the eyes. I should have clarified. Jinns do not just appear in front of us at random day and night. And we all know this from our experiences. Every culture knows this. No matter what the culture is in the world, seeing a demon or something is the exception and not the rule. Correct? That's what I'm trying to say. We're not talking about the effects of the shayateen on us in waswas. That's a whole different topic, which we might get into even in part 3, because part 2 is about sihr and ruqya, right? The issue, actually I've given a khutbah 2 years ago, 3 years ago, about seeking protection from shaitan, here at MIC. So the issue of shaitan's waswas and qareen, I didn't talk about today. That is a whole different topic of what is the role of shaitan, why did Allah create shaitan, how do we protect ourselves against particularly shaitan. That is a subtopic of what I did today. I didn't shed too much light on that. Maybe we will in the future, inshallah. Sisters, any questions? Yes?
I have heard that we have a jinn on our shoulder or somewhere.
This is what the brother Bashar is, you have a qareen. This is a shaitan. That when every one of us is born, a shaitan is assigned to misguide us. So that is the qareen.
Another thing is, in the Quran it's mentioned the throne of Iblis, or is it...
No, the Quran does not mention the throne of Iblis anywhere. It's mentioned in hadith literature. That Iblis is so arrogant that he wanted to compete with Allah. La hawla quwwata billah. So if Allah has a throne, Iblis made his own throne. This is a hadith. It's in the water somewhere that he has a throne over some body of water, but we don't know where, and obviously it doesn't make any sense to try to narrow it down to the Bermuda Triangle or something like this. We'll let it go, inshallah. Yes, go ahead.
Like animals, are they like, for example, during at nighttime, you know, when a dog just starts barking and whatnot, are they able to, you know, sense the jinn, and if, you know, when a jinn enters, or you know, is in a dog form, for example, or a snake form, is there a way to tell that animal in fact is?
So the second question first, is there a way to tell that a particular animal is a jinn or an animal at any given time? No, not immediately, no. That the jinn outwardly will look like that animal at the time, and that is why our Prophet ﷺ explicitly said, speak to that entity and tell it to get out of the house. So if it is a jinn, it will understand you, because it's a jinn. And if it's not a jinn, it will not understand you. So there's no easy way of telling that is the case. However, I don't want to tell any weird stories or not, but if the animal starts acting more than just like an animal, let me just leave it like that. Okay, maybe like kind of like that type of stuff. Okay. Yeah. So if the animal has certain powers that clearly animals are not typically having, then you can imagine it's not an animal. Okay. And your other question was what?
If a dog, for example,
Can the animals see the jinn?
Yeah.
It appears that certain animals can see the jinn better than we can. Yes. It appears this way from folklore. It appears that certain animals, in particular dogs and cats, might be able to perceive the jinns in a manner that we are not able to perceive. Okay, yes, brother. Well, Mustafa and then you. Okay, Mustafa, because Mustafa had his hand first. Mustafa and then you.
well, hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إذا كان جنح الليل أو أمسيت كفوا صبيانكم فإن الشياطين تنتشر حينئذ فإذا ذهب ساعة وبعدين كمان الحديث فإن الشيطان لا يفتح بابا مغلقا. So what does exactly that mean? إن الشيطان لا يفتح بابا مغلقا.
Have you seen The Sixth Sense? Where do they get these from? Think about it. Think about it. What did I tell you? I mean, if you understood the joke I'm saying, the hadith translates, the shaitan does not open a closed door. That's the hadith. Shaitan does not open a closed door. And if you look at the folklore, the famous movie that came out. They had this, one of the rules was the demon is not going to open, the ghost is not going to open the closed door. Where do they get this from? These are things that they simply, it's real, and humanity kind of figures it out, and our Quran and Sunnah proves it in different ways, and so it merges together. So the meaning here is that, quite literally, when you close the door and you mention the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the shayateen will not be able to enter it. It will be a barrier against them, quite literally. Right? But the point is, and that is why even when you go to sleep at night, the Prophet said, cover up your food. There's the hadith, like, don't just, same thing, don't just leave it like that. Cover up your food and say Bismillah over it. So if you have a cup of water at night, you shouldn't just leave it outside if you're going to drink it the next morning. You just put anything on top and just say Bismillah, cover it up. Because their barriers are different than our barriers. And our Prophet has told us, once you close the door and you say Bismillah, once you put something on the food, you say Bismillah, in a manner we will never understand. It will never, they will never, and let me give you another of these myths. In the Scandinavian countries, they believe in these zombies and Draculas and whatnot. Again, one of the rules is what? You have to give permission for it to come into your house. If you don't give permission, it's not going to come into your house. And there are horror movies based upon this as well. Okay, that is trying to trick you to get into that. And again, this hadith that shaitan cannot open the door once it has been shut. Means once you have shut it off and you're following the sunnah, then it will not be able to open up. And therefore you are supposed to close your doors at night, and you're supposed to say the name of Allah, and over food as well, and shaitan will not have access to it.
With this hadith, Shaykhna, it says, فَكُفُّوا صِبْيَانَكُمْ. So are kids especially vulnerable?
Kids are especially vulnerable at one particular time. That is Maghrib time. That around Maghrib time, for around 40-50 minutes, we should bring the kids in. Authentic hadith of the Prophet, that's when the shayateen are let go. And so they like to irritate and tease and whatnot, because they are shayateen. I mean, this is animalistic, isn't it? You want to tease a young kid. That's what they are. They are shayateen. So during this time, we bring them in and lock or shut the doors. Then, once the Maghrib time has passed by 20-30 minutes, if they want to play outside or whatnot, then they are allowed to do that.